The warehouse door exploded inward with a thunderous crash that sent rusted metal fragments skittering across the concrete floor. Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez stumbled through the opening, her tactical vest torn and darkened with blood that wasn't entirely her own. Her breathing came in sharp, controlled bursts, the kind of disciplined rhythm that separated trained soldiers from corpses in situations like this. The abandoned textile factory stretched before her like a concrete tomb, its broken windows allowing sickly yellow streetlight to filter through decades of grime. Massive industrial looms sat silent and skeletal in the shadows, their metal frames twisted into grotesque shapes by years of neglect. Maya pressed her back against a support pillar, wincing as the movement sent fresh pain shooting through her ribs. She'd been running for 6 hours. Straight. Her radio crackled with static, then died completely. The electromagnetic pulse from the facility had fried most electronics within a 20-mile radius, leaving her cut off from command. Maya checked her sidearm. 4 rounds left. Not nearly enough for what was coming. The sound of boots on gravel outside made her freeze. 3 sets, moving with military precision. Maya's jaw tightened as she recognized the tactical formation. These weren't random hostiles. They were professionals. "Rodriguez!" The voice that echoed through the warehouse carried a thick Eastern European accent. "We know you're in there. Come out, and we make this quick." Maya said nothing, sliding deeper into the shadows between 2 massive machines. Her fingers found the emergency beacon clipped to her belt, but she hesitated. Activating it would bring help, but it would also reveal her location to anyone monitoring military frequencies. And after what she'd seen at the facility, she wasn't sure who could be trusted anymore. Heavy footsteps entered the warehouse, accompanied by the distinctive whine of night vision equipment powering up. Maya held her breath, counting the seconds. 3 men spread in a standard search pattern. Professional, but not perfect. "The extraction point," called another voice, this one with a slight German accent. "Tell us where your people are meeting you, and we let you walk away." Maya almost laughed. Walk away. As if any of them would be walking anywhere after tonight. The first soldier appeared around the edge of her hiding spot, his rifle raised and ready. Maya moved to like liquid shadow, her combat knife finding the gap between his helmet and body armor before he could react. He dropped silently, but the sound of his equipment hitting the floor echoed through the cavernous space. Contact. The remaining 2 soldiers opened fire immediately, muzzle flashes throbbing through the darkness like deadly lightning. Maya rolled behind another machine as bullets sparked off metal and concrete, sending chips of debris raining down around her. She came up firing, her first shot taking the second soldier center mass. He stumbled backward but didn't fall body armor. Her second shot found his throat, and he collapsed in a gurgling heap. The third soldier was already moving, flanking around a row of abandoned equipment. Maya tracked his movement by sound, waiting for the perfect moment. When he rounded the corner, she was ready, except he wasn't alone. The man who stepped into view wore the same tactical gear as the others, but something was wrong with his face. In the dim light, Maya could see that his skin had a grayish pallor, and his eyes reflected the streetlight like an animal's. When he smiled, his teeth were too sharp, too numerous. "Hello, Maya," he said, his voice carrying an unnatural harmonic that made her bones ache. "We've been looking for you." Maya's blood turned to ice. She knew that voice, had heard it in her nightmares for months. Dr. Kozlov, the man responsible for Project Nightfall. The man who should have been dead. "Impossible," she whispered, raising her weapon. "I saw you die. I watched the facility burn." Kozlov's laugh was like breaking glass. Death is such a limiting concept, don't you think? Especially when one has access to the right enhancements. The third soldier stepped into view beside him, and Maya saw that he bore the same unnatural characteristics, the pale skin, The reflective eyes, the predatory smile. But worse than that, she could see the surgical scars along his neck and arms. The telltale signs of the enhancement procedures. They'd perfected it. The process that had nearly killed her had been refined, improved. These weren't just soldiers anymore. They were something else entirely. The extraction point, Maya, Kozlov repeated, his voice taking on a hypnotic quality that made her head swim. Your friends are waiting for you, aren't they? Tell us where, and we'll make sure they receive a proper welcome. Maya's hand moved instinctively to her abdomen, where the scar tissue pulled tight beneath her tactical vest. The memory of the procedure flooded back the agony of the enhancement process. The feeling of something foreign being grafted into her very DNA. The moment when she'd realized what they were trying to turn her into. She'd escaped before the process was complete, but not before they'd marked her. Not before they'd changed her in ways she was still discovering. Go to hell, she snarled. Squeezing the trigger, the enhanced soldier moved faster than humanly possible, diving aside as her bullet sparked off the concrete where he'd been standing. Kozlov didn't even flinch, his smile widening to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth. Such spirit, he mused. It's what made you the perfect candidate in the first place. But you can't run forever, Maya. The beacon inside you grows stronger every day. Soon, you won't be able to resist the call. Maya's blood ran cold. The beacon. She'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed made her stomach lurch. They'd implanted something in her during the procedure. Something that would eventually override her free will and turn her into one of them. The enhanced soldier flanked around to her left while Kozlov approached from the right, moving with the coordinated precision of a pack hunting prey. Maya backed toward the rear of the warehouse, her mind racing through tactical options. 2 rounds left. 2 targets. And even if she killed them both, there would be others, Dot. There were always others. You feel it, don't you? Kozlov continued, his voice echoing strangely in the vast space. The hunger. The need to hunt. It's growing stronger, isn't it? Soon, you'll understand what you really are. Maya's finger tightened on the trigger. But before she could fire, a new sound cut through the night, the distinctive whop-whop of military helicopters approaching fast. Searchlights blazed through the broken windows, turning the warehouse into a maze of harsh light and deep shadow. Kozlov's expression shifted from predatory confidence to something approaching concern. It seems your friends have found you after all, he said. No matter. We have what we came for. Before Maya could ask what he meant, both enhanced soldiers moved with inhuman speed. The one on her left grabbed her rifle, crushing the barrel with his bare hands, while the other seized her tactical vest. Maya fought back, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to land several solid hits. But it was like punching steel. They slammed her against a concrete pillar. And before she could react, the enhanced soldier's claws, when had he grown claws, sliced through her vest and shirt like tissue paper. The fabric fell away, exposing her torso to the cold air and the harsh glare of the approaching searchlights. Maya's scar lay, exposed across her abdomen, a twisted, angry line of tissue that pulsed with its own faint bioluminescence. But it wasn't just a scar anymore. As she watched in horror, the tissue began to writhe and shift, responding to the proximity of the other enhanced beings. The beacon was activating, and somewhere in the distance, something howled in response. The helicopter's searchlight swept across the warehouse like the eye of an angry god, its beam cutting through the industrial gloom with surgical precision. Colonel James Hayes rappelled from the aircraft before it had even touched down, his boots hitting the concrete with the authority of a man who had seen too much and lived to tell about it. Behind him, a squad of elite operatives followed, their weapons trained on the shadows that seemed to writhe and move in the harsh white light. Rodriguez. Hayes barked, his voice cutting through the rotor wash. Sound off. The silence that greeted him was wrong, too complete, too heavy. In 30 years of military service, Hayes had learned to read the texture of silence. And this one screamed of recent violence and something far worse lurking just beneath the surface. His team spread out in a practice formation, night vision goggles scanning the maze of abandoned machinery. Sergeant Chun, his point man, raised a closed fist contact. Hayes moved forward, weapon ready, until he saw the bodies. 2 men in tactical gear lay sprawled among the industrial debris, their blood pooling in the spaces between broken concrete. Professional kills, clean and efficient. But something about the scene made Hayes' skin crawl. The bodies were positioned wrong, as if they'd been moved after death. And the wounds? Sir, Chum's voice carried a note of unease that Hayes had never heard from the veteran soldier. You need to see this. Hayes approached the third body and immediately understood Chen's discomfort. The corpse wore the same tactical gear as the others, but its face was a ruin of torn flesh and exposed bone. More disturbing were the hands, or what remained of them. The fingers had been elongated, ending in what could only be described as claws. Surgical scars crisscrossed the arms and neck, and the skin had an unnatural grayish pallor that spoke of something fundamentally wrong. What the hell happened here? Chun whispered. Before Hayes could respond, a sound echoed from the depths of the warehouse, a low, pained moan that was unmistakably human. The team moved toward it with weapons raised, their formation tight and professional, despite the wrongness that seemed to permeate the air itself. They found Maya Rodriguez pinned against a concrete pillar, her tactical vest and shirt hanging in tatters around her waist. Her arms were restrained by what appeared to be industrial cable, and her head hung forward in exhaustion or unconsciousness. But it was the scar across her exposed abdomen that made Hayes stop dead in his tracks. The twisted line of tissue pulsed with a faint, sickly green bioluminescence that seemed to respond to their presence. As Hayes watched in fascination and horror, the scar writhed like a living thing, its edges shifting and moving as if something beneath the skin was trying to break free. Hayes had seen that scar before. Not in person, but in classified files that carried security clearances so high they didn't officially exist. Project Nightfall. The government's attempt to create enhanced soldiers, using a combination of genetic manipulation and biotechnology that pushed the boundaries of what it meant to be human. The project had been terminated 3 years ago after a catastrophic containment breach. Officially, all subjects had been eliminated. Unofficially, Hayes now realized at least one had escaped. Jesus Christ, he breathed, lowering his weapon. Chun, get those restraints off her. Now. Sir? Chun hesitated, his rifle still trained on Maya's motionless form. Shouldn't we? That's an order, Sergeant. Hayes' voice carried the weight of absolute authority. And get everyone else back. Establish a perimeter at least 50 meters out. Chun's training warred with his instincts, but discipline won. He moved forward with his combat knife, while the rest of the team reluctantly pulled back. As the cable restraints fell away, Maya's eyes snapped open, revealing irises that glowed with the same sickly green light as her scar. She moved faster than human reflexes should allow, her hand closing around Chun's throat before he could react. The sergeant's feet left the ground as Maya lifted him with one arm, her enhanced strength making the 200-pound soldier seem weightless. Maya! Hayes barked, not raising his weapon, but putting every ounce of command authority into his voice. Stand down. We're here to help. Maya's head turned toward him with predatory precision, and Hayes found himself looking into eyes that held intelligence, but also something wild and hungry. For a moment, he thought she might snap Chun's neck without a second thought. Then recognition flickered across her features, and she released the sergeant, who collapsed to his knees gasping. "Carl Hayes," she said, her voice carrying an odd harmonic quality that made his teeth ache. "You shouldn't have come here." Hayes approached slowly, his hands visible and empty. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, you've been missing for 3 months. We've been looking for you." Maya's laugh was bitter and sharp. "Looking for me? Or looking for what they turned me into?" She gestured to her exposed scar, which continued to pulse with that unnatural light. "How much do you know about Project Nightfall, Colonel?" The question hit Hayes like a physical blow. His security clearance was high enough to know the project existed, but the details have been compartmentalized beyond his reach. What he did know came from whispered conversations in Pentagon corridors and heavily redacted after-action reports. "Enough to know it was shut down," he said carefully. "Enough to know it was classified beyond top secret." "Shut down." Maya's smile was predatory. "Is that what they told you? That they shut it down after the containment breach?" Hayes felt ice forming in his stomach. "What containment breach?" Maya pulled the remains of her shirt around herself, though it did little to hide the writhing scar. 3 months ago, Facility 7 went dark. Complete communications blackout. When I escaped, the entire complex was overrun with things that used to be human. Enhanced soldiers who'd been pushed too far. Their DNA rewritten until they became something else entirely. She moved closer, and Hayes caught a scent that was wrong, too sharp, too chemical, like ozone and copper. They didn't shut down the project, Colonel. They lost control of it. And now it's spreading. Spreading how? Hayes demanded, though part of him already knew the answer. Maya's hand moved to her scar, and Hayes saw that her fingernails had grown longer, sharper. The enhancement process doesn't just change your body. It changes your DNA at a fundamental level. And that change, it's contagious. The implications hit Hayes like a sledgehammer. If Maya was right, if the enhanced soldiers could somehow transmit their modifications to others, then the containment breach wasn't just a military disaster. It was a potential extinction event. How many escaped? He asked. "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Dozens, maybe more. They're organized, Colonel. They have a hierarchy, a purpose. And they're hunting. Hunting what?" Maya's glowing eyes met his, and Hayes saw something that might have been regret flickering in their depths. "People like me. Partial conversions who escaped before the process was complete. We're unfinished, and they need us to perfect their work." A new sound echoed through the warehouse, a howl that was neither fully human nor entirely animal. It was answered by another, then another, until the night air filled with a chorus of inhuman voices that seemed to come from every direction at once. Maya's scar flared brighter, and she doubled over in pain. "They're here," she gasped. "The beacon. It's calling them." Hayes grabbed his radio, but static was all it answered. The electromagnetic interference was getting stronger, which meant whatever was coming was close. Very close. How many? He demanded. Maya straightened, and Hayes saw that her canine teeth had grown noticeably longer. "All of them," she said. "They're all coming." The warehouse lights began to flicker and die, one by one, as something moved through the darkness beyond the broken windows. And in that growing darkness, Hayes caught glimpses of shapes that moved too fast and too fluid to be entirely human. The hunt had begun. The warehouse plunged into darkness as the last fluorescent fixture died with a shower of sparks. Colonel Hayes felt his night vision goggles automatically adjust, bathing the industrial wasteland in ghostly green light. What he saw made his blood freeze in his veins. Shapes moved beyond the broken windows, dozens of them, flowing across the exterior walls like liquid shadow. They moved with an inhuman grace that defied gravity, their forms occasionally catching the distant streetlight to reveal glimpses of what they had once been. Men and women in the tattered remains of military uniforms. Their bodies twisted and elongated by the enhancement process until they resembled something from humanity's darkest nightmares. Maya Rodriguez stood in the center of the warehouse floor, her bioluminescent scar now blazing like a beacon in the darkness. The light pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat, and Hayes realized with growing horror that it wasn't just marking her location, it was calling to them. "Chun." Hayes barked into his comm unit. "Status report." Static answered him, punctuated by the distant sound of automatic weapons fire. His team was engaged, but the electromagnetic interference was making coordination impossible. They were fighting blind against an enemy that could see perfectly in the dark. "Your men are good, Colonel," Maya said, her voice carrying that unnatural harmonic quality that seemed to resonate in his bones. "But they're not enhanced. They can't match the speed, the strength, the sensory capabilities of what's coming for us." As if summoned by her words, the first of the creatures crashed through a window 30 feet above the warehouse floor. It landed in a crouch that should have shattered human bones, then rose to its full height, nearly 7 feet of corded muscle and surgical scars. What had once been a face was now a predatory mask of elongated features and glowing eyes. Hayes raised his rifle, but Maya's hand slammed down on the barrel before he could fire. "Don't," she hissed. "Muzzle flash will give away our position to the others. And bullets won't stop them unless you hit the neural cluster at the base of the skull." Neural cluster? Part of the enhancement process. They relocated and reinforced the brain stem to make the subjects harder to kill. Maya's eyes never left the creature as it began to stalk through the machinery, its head turning with mechanical precision as it searched for them. "I should know. I helped design the procedure." Hayes stared at her in shock. "You're one of the scientists?" "Was?" Maya's smile was bitter. "Dr. Maya Rodriguez, xenobiology specialist. I thought we were creating the perfect soldier. Instead, we opened a door that should have stayed closed forever." The creature's head snapped toward them, its enhanced hearing picking up their whispered conversation. It moved with liquid speed, bounding across the warehouse floor in leaps that covered impossible distances. Hayes had a split second to appreciate the terrible beauty of its movement before Maya shoved him aside and met the creature head-on. The collision should have killed her. Instead, Maya moved with the same inhuman speed, her partially enhanced physiology allowing her to match the creature's reflexes. They crashed into a bank of abandoned machinery, metal shrieking as their enhanced strength tore through industrial equipment like paper. Hayes watched in fascination and horror as Maya fought something that had once been human. Her movements were fluid and precise, but he could see the strain on her face as she struggled against an opponent who had completed the enhancement process she had only begun. The creature's claws raked across her ribs, drawing lines of blood that glowed faintly in the darkness. Maya responded by driving her knee into its solar plexus with enough force to dent the concrete wall behind it. The impact echoed through the warehouse like a gunshot. "The neural cluster," Maya shouted as she grappled with the creature. "Base of the skull." Hayes lined up his shot, waiting for a clear target as the two enhanced beings fought with superhuman speed and violence. When the creature's head turned at the right angle, he squeezed the trigger. The rifle's report was deafening in the enclosed space, and the creature's head snapped back as the bullet found its mark. It collapsed instantly, its enhanced nervous system shutting down like a computer with its power cord pulled. "One down," Maya panted, wiping glowing blood from her mouth. "Approximately 37 to go." 37? Hayes felt his tactical mind racing through the implications. "How do you know the exact number?" Maya's scar flared brighter, and she doubled over in pain. "Because they're all connected through the enhancement network. I can feel them, Colonel. Every single one." She straightened, and Hayes saw that her eyes were now glowing brighter than before. "And they can feel me. The warehouse erupted in chaos as creatures poured through every opening: windows, doors, gaps in the walls that Hayes hadn't even noticed. They moved like a coordinated pack, their enhanced senses allowing them to communicate and coordinate without sound. Hayes opened fire, his training taking over as he fell back on decades of combat experience. His shots were precise and deadly, each one aimed at the neural clusters Maya had identified. But for every creature he dropped, two more seemed to take its place. This way. Maya grabbed his arm, her enhanced strength nearly dislocating his shoulder as she pulled him toward the rear of the warehouse. There's a service tunnel that leads to the old subway system. We can lose them in the underground. They ran through the maze of machinery, creatures dropping from the ceiling and emerging from the shadows around them. Maya moved with inhuman grace, her partially enhanced physiology allowing her to navigate obstacles that would have slowed Hayes down. But he could see the strain on her face, the way her scar pulsed brighter with each passing moment. "Maya," he called as they reached a maintenance hatch set into the warehouse floor. "What aren't you telling me?" She paused in the act of tearing the heavy metal cover away with her bare hands. "The beacon isn't just calling them to me, Colonel. It's changing me. Every minute I'm exposed to their presence. The enhancement process continues. Eventually," she trailed off. But Hayes understood. "Eventually, you'll become one of them. Eventually, I'll lose the ability to resist the collective consciousness. I'll become part of their network, and everything I know about military protocols, extraction procedures, and safe houses will become theirs." Hayes felt the weight of the implications settling on his shoulders. Maya wasn't just a survivor of Project Nightfall. She was a walking intelligence breach waiting to happen. "And if the creatures captured her alive, how long do we have?" he asked. Maya's scar flared so brightly it cast shadows on the warehouse walls. "Based on the rate of neural integration, maybe 6 hours before the process becomes irreversible." A new sound echoed through the warehouse, a voice that was unmistakably human but carried harmonics that made Hayes's teeth ache. It spoke in a language he didn't recognize, but Maya's face went white. What did it say? Hayes demanded. "It's Dr. Kozlov," Maya whispered. "He's alive, and he's leading them. He just ordered them to take me alive." She looked at Hayes with eyes that glowed like green fire. "Colonel, if they capture me, you have to kill me. Promise me." Before Hayes could respond, the warehouse floor began to vibrate. Something massive was moving beneath them, something that made the concrete crack and buckle. The service tunnel Maya had been leading them toward suddenly seemed like a very bad idea. "Change of plans," Hayes muttered, raising his rifle as shapes began emerging from the tunnel entrance. "We go up." Maya looked at the warehouse's skeletal ceiling, then at the creatures surrounding them, then back at Hayes. "You're insane." "Probably," Hayes agreed. "But it's better than the alternative." The hunt was far from over. The warehouse ceiling stretched 40 feet above them, a lattice of rusted steel beams and corrugated metal that groaned under decades of neglect. Colonel Hayes fired a grappling hook from his tactical kit, the line catching on a support beam as creatures poured from every entrance like a tide of nightmares made flesh. "Move!" he shouted, grabbing Maya around the waist as they ascended into the industrial skeleton above. Her enhanced weight nearly snapped the line, but military-grade equipment held as they swung clear of grasping claws that missed them by inches. They landed on a narrow catwalk that ran the length of the warehouse, 20 feet above the chaos below. Hayes could see his team's muzzle flashes through the broken windows. Chun and the others were still fighting, but they were being systematically overwhelmed by creatures that moved faster than human reflexes could track. "Colonel," Maya gasped, her scar now blazing so brightly it cast harsh shadows across the metal grating. "The neural integration is accelerating. Being this close to so many of them, I can hear their thoughts. Hayes looked at her and saw that her fingernails had grown into proper claws, and her canine teeth now protruded past her lower lip. The enhancement process was consuming her from the inside out, rewriting her DNA in real time. "What are they thinking?" he asked, checking his ammunition. 3 magazines left. Maya's eyes rolled back, showing only glowing green sclera. When she spoke, her voice carried multiple harmonics, as if several people were speaking in unison. "They're not just hunting me, Colonel. This was never about recapture. It's about completion." "Completion of what?" "The network." Maya's head snapped toward him, and Hayes saw that her pupils had become vertical slits. Every enhanced being is a node in a collective consciousness. But the network is incomplete without the original test subjects, the ones who escaped before full integration. I'm not just a target. I'm a missing piece of their hive mind. Below them, the creatures had stopped their chaotic assault and were now moving with eerie coordination. They formed concentric circles around the base of the catwalk, their glowing eyes all focused upward with predatory patience. "They're not trying to capture you," Hayes realized. "They're waiting for the process to complete itself." "Exactly." Maya doubled over as another wave of pain racked her body. "Once I'm fully integrated, I'll come down to them willingly. And then they'll have access to everything I know about military installations, government safe houses, classified research facilities." Hayes felt the tactical situation crystallizing in his mind with horrible clarity. Maya Rodriguez wasn't just a survivor. She was a weapon pointed at the heart of national security. And in less than 6 hours, that weapon would be in enemy hands. A new voice echoed through the warehouse, speaking in that same unknown language Maya had recognized earlier. This time, she translated without being asked. "Dr. Kozlov says the integration is proceeding faster than expected. He's pleased with my progress." Maya's voice was becoming less human with each word, the harmonics growing stronger. "He's ordering the others to maintain position while he comes up to oversee the final phase. Personally." Hayes looked down and saw a figure moving through the crowd of creatures with unmistakable authority. Dr. Kozlov had been transformed beyond recognition, his body elongated and twisted, his limbs ending in surgical implements that gleamed in the bioluminescent glow. But his eyes still held human intelligence, albeit intelligence twisted by whatever the enhancement process had done to his mind. "Maya," Hayes said quietly, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. Can you still access the facility's database? The research files from Project Nightfall?" Maya's head tilted at an unnatural angle. "Yes, the neural link gives me access to all shared knowledge within the network." "Why?" "Because I need to know if there's a way to reverse the process, or at least stop it." Maya was silent for a long moment, her eyes flickering as she accessed information that existed in the collective consciousness of the enhanced beings below. When she spoke again, her voice carried a note of desperate hope. "There's a kill switch," she whispered, "built into the original enhancement protocol. If the neural cluster is overloaded with a specific electromagnetic frequency, it causes cascade failure throughout the entire network." Hayes felt his pulse quicken. "How do we generate that frequency?" "The beacon in my scar isn't just a tracking device, it's also a transmitter. If I can overload it, the resulting pulse should propagate through the network and shut down every enhanced being within a 50-mile radius, including you." Maya met his eyes. Then for a moment, Hayes saw the woman she had been before the enhancement process began consuming her humanity, including me. Below them, Dr. Kozlov had reached the base of the catwalk and was beginning to climb with spider-like agility. His transformed hands found purchase on a metal framework, as if it were designed for his use. "How do we overload the beacon?" Hayes asked urgently. "Electrical current. Massive voltage applied directly to the scar tissue." Maya looked around the warehouse, her enhanced vision picking out details Hayes couldn't see. "They're the main electrical panel. If we can reroute power from the grid." Hayes followed her gaze to a massive electrical box mounted on the far wall, 30 feet away across a gap that would require another grappling line to cross. But between them and the panel, Dr. Kozlov was ascending with terrifying speed. "I'll hold him off," Hayes said, checking his rifle. "You get to that panel. Colonel, he's not just enhanced, he's the alpha of this pack. His modifications are more extensive than anything we attempted on the original test subjects. You can't fight him alone." Hayes smiled grimly. "I don't plan to fight him. I plan to delay him." He opened fire, not at Dr. Kozlov, but at the support beams holding up their section of catwalk. The metal shrieked and sparked as bullets severed crucial joints, and the entire structure began to sway dangerously. Maya understood immediately. She leaped across the gap with inhuman grace, her enhanced physiology allowing her to cover the distance that would have been impossible for an unmodified human. She landed hard against the electrical panel, her claws tearing through the metal housing to expose the high-voltage cables within. Dr. Kozlov reached the catwalk just as Hayes fired his last round into a critical support beam. The entire structure collapsed, sending both men plummeting toward the warehouse floor. But Kozlov's enhanced reflexes allowed him to catch himself on a hanging cable. While Hayes crashed through a stack of abandoned machinery, pain exploded through Hayes's body as he struggled to his feet, blood streaming from a dozen cuts. His rifle was gone, lost in the fall, but his sidearm was still holstered. He drew it as Dr. Kozlov dropped to the floor with predatory grace. "Colonel Hayes," Kozlov said, his voice a harmony of human speech and electronic distortion. "You cannot stop what has already begun. The network will be complete, and humanity will evolve beyond its current limitations." "Evolution?" Hayes spat blood. "You call this evolution? You've turned people into monsters." "We have transcended the weaknesses of flesh," Kozlov replied, advancing with measured steps. "Fear, doubt, individual desire, all eliminated in favor of perfect unity." Above them, Maya had torn away the electrical panel's safety systems and was preparing to grab the main power cables. Her scar was now so bright it illuminated the entire warehouse like a green sun. "Maya!" Hayes shouted. "Do it now." She looked down at him one last time, and Hayes saw tears streaming down her face, the last expression of her individual humanity, before the network claimed her. Completely. "Tell my family I'm sorry," she whispered. Then she grabbed the high-voltage cables with both hands. The explosion of light was visible for miles.